So let's take a look at our module overview slide. We've got 3 sections. And the first section is just a general discussion of how do we deal with non-domain joined member devices. And then we've got a section on just workplace join and a section on just work folders. So our first section then is how do we deal with non-domain member devices? How do we manage those? And our first slide with content then is what are the challenges? And these days, part of the challenge is that users are expecting to be able to bring in their personal devices to work, to use any device, to work from any device, whether it's a laptop or a tablet or a smartphone even. And we need to be able to give them access to the data and applications that they need where they want their access. And that's part of the challenge then is how do we deal with that? Especially when they're bringing in personal devices that are not company owned. How do we manage those devices? We've also got issues with confidentiality of information and removal of information. Like what if they leave the company? What if their device is stolen? So we have remote mobile wipe capabilities. And traditionally we've had limited control over devices that users bring into work. Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at some compare and contrast here. So comparing a domain member and a non-domain member, what can we do? What can we not do? Look at the right-hand side of this slide. This is the classic way things have been for a long time, where a domain-joined device uses a domain account. We're talking Active Directory, of course, Active Directory domain account. Local accounts are not used. You're able to use group policy to control that device 100%. And so we have, we can centrally administer and manage that computer with group policy. Well, on the left-hand side, with devices that are not joined to the domain, we have a much more limited set of capabilities as far as IT management of these devices. So they may be using a local account. They probably don't have a domain account whatsoever. You can't manage those with group policy. And they may have difficulty accessing company resources because they're not joined to the domain and they're not using a domain account. Mm-hmm. Let's go to the next slide then. So here are some technologies you can use to deal with non-domain member devices. And let's take our time here and go through these. So the first one listed here is Windows to Go. And this is where you're trying to mitigate this problem of, well, you can't join their device to the domain. They don't have a domain account. What can you do? Mm-hmm. Hey, you can give them a USB flash drive that has Windows to Go on it. So they just boot to the USB flash drive, and there's their Windows 8.1 Enterprise Edition operating system with all their company applications that they need, and direct access now is an 8.1 with Windows to Go, so you can connect to your workplace network and have access to everything. So that's one way to mitigate non-domain joined devices. Next up on our list here is virtual desktop infrastructure. You could just give them the ability to use a remote desktop connection to a virtual desktop that's running a virtual machine on Hyper-V. So maybe it's running Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, a virtual machine on a Hyper-V server. They connect remotely. They have everything they need to do their work, even though they're connecting in from possibly their personal device, maybe a personal laptop, for example. Mm-hmm. So that's another way we can mitigate non-domain joined devices. Next up here is workplace join. And I'm going to go ahead and skip that for now because that's our next section. Mm-hmm. And work folders is in this list as well. I'm going to skip that until the work folders section. So our fourth thing here is the Open Mobile Device Management Protocol, OMDM, and this is an open standards protocol to help manage mobile devices. So that way, if you have iOS devices, Android devices, Windows 8 or RT devices, you can manage all these with this protocol under the hood. And there are services out there that can help you manage all these devices. So we've talked already about Windows Intune and System Center Configuration Manager 2012 R2, that these are ways you can manage these mobile devices. And they're using OMDM, the protocol behind the hood to do that.
There are a lot of third-party offerings out there as well using the open MDMs, but we always talk about Intune here, of course. But in many ways, we kind of want to see some adoption of Windows devices, so how they're managed is not that big a concern at this point, as long as we're seeing more devices get out there. But
okay, sure.
It's funny, when you look at this list, you see kind of a sliding scale, what it costs and what it doesn't cost. Like I look at Windows to Go, and I think that's kind of an inexpensive way. You can send it in the mail. You can have somebody come in, pick it up. There's a lot of ways to get the Windows to Go out there in someone's hands. Yeah. You look at virtual desktop infrastructure, it's quite a bit more difficult to configure. It takes some tricks, takes a lot of infrastructure. You have to have a lot of server compute, a lot of server storage and setting up. But it's a great way to go because you can change it centrally. It's wonderful where, once you send that Windows to Go device out there, you're managing it, but you don't have that much ability to make too many changes, where with the VDI, you can just change the desktop, whether it be personal or pooled or even the old-fashioned terminal services view, but you can still manage that. There's a bit more overhead, and that's on a server side. It's not really in the scope of this course, but it's good to keep in mind because VDI, I think think will be heading to the desktop more and more. As a desktop support technician, we'll be seeing more and more VDI touch. And with Workplace Join, which you'll go into now, I think it's probably our flagship right now as far as people come into the organization and they have their devices and they're encouraged to bring them now, and everyone's accepted this, and this is probably the best way to manage that. So I know that you're going to be pretty heavy on Workplace Join and work folders, which I think are pretty important messages. As far as the exam goes, I think you're probably going to see all of these to some extent on the exam. So it's probably good to know them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, going along with the OMDM protocol, the very last thing we have here is remote business data removal, and I said it correctly that time. As opposed to Module 1.
But you go ahead.
For some reason, I just get twisted up with that one. So, remote business data removal. So we can have policies now for mobile devices where the basic concept is they can have their personal data on their device, but if they have any corporate data on the device, then we've got policies in place to remove that data if they leave the company or if their device is stolen, et cetera. So, and then one other thing to mention here is the web application proxy. This is a new feature in 8.1 and Server 2012 R2 to allow you to publish web-based applications to these non-domain joined devices so that they can get access to some of the corporate applications that you might have. Okay. Well, let's keep going. And some other security enhancements that we have for 8.1 for devices that are not joined to a domain. You can have these mobile device policies, whether it's through Intune or something else, where you can require, for example, device encryption. You can require mandatory sign-in. You can require remote business data removal we just talked about. So you can require a lot of these things. And other security enhancements we have here, we talked about biometrics already, and or I guess that's coming up. Sorry, we're talking about biometrics coming up. And Windows Defender has anti-malware, antivirus, and anti-spyware in there. And Internet Explorer 11 has been improved quite a bit security-wise. So I guess for computers not joined to a domain, as long as they're running Windows 8.1, you can still take advantage of a lot of the security enhancements.
Yeah, definitely.
So really, with the whole domain join thing, we're really trying to get them access to corporate data and have some manageability over those devices. That's really the crux of the issue here.
Be able to sleep at night, sure. Yeah. If you're an IT pro.
Okay, so next slide here as well. You can manage these devices by using Windows Intune and Configuration Manager. We've already talked about this quite a bit. But just, I guess, to recap, Windows Intune's a cloud-based service. It's out there in the internet. Does not require any on-premise servers. You just have to have internet connectivity. So you can manage it through the admin console, and you can manage all your clients that are out there as long as they have internet connectivity. System Center Configuration Manager is an on-premise server. You can integrate that with Windows Intune, and both can be used to manage domain-joined and non-domain-joined PCs and devices. Looking at the grid at the bottom, to me, they're almost identical. They both have software updates. They both have software deployment, endpoint protection. Well, I would say Configuration Manager, though, you get a lot more features because you're paying more. It's an on-premise server. It's a little more robust than Windows Intune. You can get reporting. You can get asset inventory and a lot more features with System Center Configuration Manager.
I kind of think of it as a high. If you're trying to manage an organization, let's say it's a small to medium, Intune's fine. But if you're any medium to large to enterprise, you're going to want System Center Configuration Manager. And we've kind of talked about this to death. But where you bring in Intune when you're managing those BYOD scenarios, they actually work pretty well together, and there's a connector to them now. So I do expect that there'll probably be tighter integration with that BYOD momentum with System Center. So look for that in the future for sure.
I think this would be a good time to also remind everybody watching this that we have these videos that where they go through Windows Intune and System Center Configuration Manager and manage the iOS and Android devices. And
it's kind of a tough concept because we're talking about System Center, and perhaps many of you haven't even seen it, the console. So it's a great go out to MVA. There's a lot of System Center courses, but what's new in Windows 8.1 with System Center Configuration Manager 2012 R2. The reason I'm pointing that one out is because they really do show the UI. It's not intimidating, and how that flow goes. You plug in a device and you see how the object's managed, and then you do the inventory and software updates, and you have Intune and all of that. And once you see it, it's like, oh, I get it. It's not that difficult. When we just show it in a table here, side by side, it's a little bit hard to get the concepts down. So go out and take a look at it. There's not a lot of time invested in it. I think they're like a half an hour a piece. You got a pretty good snapshot of what's going on.
And I'll just point out for certification purposes, remember that Windows Intune is on the Windows 8 exams, so especially on the 688 exams. So you will want to definitely play with Windows Intune and look at the console and it's actually not that hard. It's pretty simple, but just go in there and take a look. And the System Center, totally not on the exam at all.
No.
Maybe some knowledge of what it is, awareness,
yes.
but not how to configure it.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, well, let's get into our next section, workplace join. What is that all about? Well, let's go to our next slide here. The idea here is you've got these personal devices, and for whatever reason you can't join them to the domain fully. Maybe it's because it's the personal device, and they own their own device. They don't want to join to the domain. But you want to give them access to some internal websites and applications. And so that's what you can do with Workplace Join. And let's be clear here, they can get access to websites and apps. They can't necessarily get access to other things at the workplace. So Workplace Join is a kind of a middle-of-the-road approach. If they were domain joined, they would get access to anything they had permission to access, which could be quite a variety of things. But this is kind of like a middle way, a middle approach where they can get access to some things, but not everything. If you want them to get access to everything, you'll still have to go the domain joined route.
Right.
So we have some acronyms on this slide. Let's talk about some of these acronyms. Okay, on the left-hand side, you've got what looks like a Windows phone, lower left-hand corner, and then above that, you've got a tablet. And they're saying in this diagram, this example, that these are workplace joins. They've already gone through this process of kind of halfway being joined to the domain, so to speak. SSO there stands for single sign-on. So if you don't have the computer's workplace joined, and they try to access an application, they'll get prompted for credentials every single time they try to access that application. So single sign-on then is a benefit of using Workplace Join, where once you get them joined in with Workplace Join, they can access whatever you give them access to, and they just log in once. They don't have to log in over and over again. So single sign-on is a nice benefit of Workplace Join. Another acronym we see on here is ADFS, Active Directory Federation Services. This is something you have to work with to set up for Workplace Join. Now, this is a server-side thing. You don't have to worry about this for your Windows 8 certification exams. Also, there's a CA on the diagram here, a certification authority. So that's something else on the server side that you would not have to worry about how to configure that for the Windows 8 exam. So for Windows 8, you just have to more about the client side, more about the big picture. What's this for? For the server exams, though, if you go that route, the 410, 411, 412, that's where you start having to know about how to set up ADFS and how to set up a CA and how to set up a domain controller to set up the infrastructure for all this. So for us, Windows 8, just be aware of an awareness thing, aware that these things are out there and they have to be on the network. Okay, so let's go to our next slide here. So some scenarios for Workplace Join. We've already talked about consumerization of IT and BYOD and personal devices. Devices that cannot or may not be domain members. This is what we're talking about. But you want to have some control over the device, give them some access to data and applications. Now, something else to be aware of is that you set up Workplace Join per user per device. So let's say you've got a device that has two users that share the device. If that's the case, you'd set up Workplace Join twice.
For that one device.
Right,
Exactly.
right. So a user is associated with a Workplace Join device, and that's about it for this slide. Let's keep going. And let's see with more components. Again, we've already kind of talked about some of these components. So you've got to have a domain environment, Active Directory Domain Services, ADDS. You got to have PKI. PKI means Public Key Infrastructure, which just means certificates. So you got to have CAs out there. Now, as far as CAs go, you have to have what's called a CRL distribution point. This is the Certificate Revocation List distribution point. That's the place to go to find the list of revoked certificates. So I mentioned briefly somewhere that the certificates, it's all about trust and cryptography. And if you don't trust the certificates, then you don't want to share encrypted material with some other party. So we need to have this revocation list. So if something gets compromised, you can revoke certificates. So your devices have to be able to access this certificate revocation list so that they know whether they can trust the other machines and servers and devices on the network. So we got to have access to that. There's another acronym on the slide called AIA. This stands for Authority Information Access, which is a fancy way of saying, where do you find the root CA's certificate? Because root CAs are often offline. So you have a PKI, you have CA, servers that are CAs, and the one that's at the top of the food chain is the root CA, and that's usually inaccessible. So there's got to be a way to, whether it's an Active Directory or a website or a shared folder somewhere, there's got to be a way to go find a copy of the root CA's certificate, and that is the AIA. So now again, this is infrastructure stuff. You don't have to worry about how to set this up for Windows 8 exams, but you have to be aware of the existence of these things. Next up is ADFS. We talked about that as well. Now, ADFS will have something called the Device Registration Service. the service to help register these non-domain joined devices in Workplace Join. We'll also see that DNS has to have a record called the Enterprise Registration Record. And we'll see that record when we look at the demo. And if you want to have external devices that are not domain joined and you want to give them access to applications, you can use the Web Application Proxy, the new feature in 8.1 and Server 2012 R2. And finally, this is a brand new feature, brand new. You got to have 8.1. Windows 8 is not good enough. You have to have 8.1 to support Workplace Join. I should caveat that also iOS devices is in our list. And I think they're going to add support in the future for Android devices and perhaps down-level Windows operating. Do you know anything about that? Or?
No, I don't think
okay.
I can't comment on it, but I know that's where they're angling, sure.
Okay. Okay, so more of the components here again. It seems like we're going over these same components over and over.
Well, actually, I think this is a really good graphic because we do talk about all of these. I'm going to go back and say what I said. We mentioned in one of our other modules, and that is, that last slide you had with the PKI. We're talking about, CRL. Go out to Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's true.
Really,
true.
I hate to do this, but that is the perfect place to go and get all of these acronyms lined up, and they explain what they do, how they interact, and it's a page and a half or something. You kind of get the picture, and I think that'd probably be sufficient enough to be able to go, I get how this works and all this ties together. The graphic that Zach's about to show you will show how this ties together as well. But some of this can be a bit daunting, acronyms stew, but go out and take a look at it, do yourself a favor, and then go, I get how this works. And you can kind of get a snapshot in your head before you go to the exam.
Or take one of my classes.
Yeah.
I go over PKA.
Go visit exact. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got another Workplace Join slide where, in this case, they're showing you the whole process. So the upper left-hand corner, we've got the Workplace Joined laptop here. And the first thing is to go to DNS, and it's looking for a record in DNS. Normally we go to DNS for like www.adatum.com. That's a fully qualified domain name.
Something friendly.
And we're trying to resolve that to an IP address, because that's what computers need. In this case, we're looking for a record called Enterprise Registration.adatum.com. So Enterprise Registration is the name that we're looking for in DNS. So on the server side of things, then, whoever's in charge of setting up DNS will have to make sure that record is in there in the DNS server. Then we know where to find the ADFS server. The ADFS server will send us a certificate, and this is because the ADFS server has the device registration service to help register Workplace Join devices. Then the Workplace Join computer will double-check the CRL, Certificate Revocation List, make sure that's all good, and then we're also going to go talk to Active Directory Domain Services and register there as well. And we'll be in the Active Directory Domain Services as in the registered devices container, which we'll see that in the demo as well. Now, how do you actually, on the client side, enroll yourself in Workplace Join? So there's a couple ways to go. If you do this manually, then you'll go to PC Settings and go to Network, and then you'll see a section there for Workplace. And on the right-hand side, you can just type in your email address and say to join.
It's that easy.
It's
weird.
Now, if you want to automate this for your end users, you can do this through group policy. And actually, we're going to do that in the demo. We're going to automate this so that you don't even have to have your users go anywhere, and they'll just automatically be Workplace joined.
They don't even know.
That's
right. Don't appreciate you for doing it.
That's right. So if you try to do this on the client side here, you'll see you get prompted for your domain credentials. Now, think about this for a second. Let's say you've got a non-domain joined device. Let's say it's a tablet or something like that. And you go to PC Settings. Let me go back a slide. You go to PC Settings. You go to Network. You go to Workplace. You type in your email address. Well, what email address are you typing in? You're typing in your domain credentials. So at some point, you do have to have a domain-based user account, even if your device is not domain joined. So you got to have some kind of domain account, and then they'll ask, well, hey, what's your password for your domain account? That's the screenshot here. And then you'll see that you'll know that you've joined the workplace when you can click on the Leave button. You can leave the workplace, then you know you've successfully joined. Now here we're looking at, on the client side, you'll be issued a certificate. And the certificate, it looks kind of ugly, doesn't it? It's like
it's supposed to, though.
This is called a GUID, Globally Unique ID. It's just a long, I think it's 128 bits, and it's in hexadecimal here, so it looks kind of nasty.
It's not worth memorizing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's not worth memorizing. It's just a way of ensuring absolute uniqueness for all these enrolled devices.
I like that expiration date on this particular one.
Oh yeah, nice, nice.
Don't
Yeah,
worry.
2023. We got about a decade here.
Yeah.
Notice issued by MS Organization Access. It's just a very generic sounding name, but that's the name you'll see for workplace join devices. And in Active Directory, you will see the same GUID, the same globally unique ID, in the registered devices container. And you'll see that the type of object is an MSDS, that's Microsoft Directory Services, dash device. That's it. Very generic. Sounds very generic. So now let's go out to Client 4. Client 4 is not domain joined. So let's, in fact, let's just verify that. We can go to PC Info. And this is just kind of a classic thing we've seen before today. We can see that we're in a work group. We are not domain joined. We're in a work group. Okay, so let's do a few more things here. Now, let's say we've got ourselves like a Windows 8.1 tablet or something like that. Okay, so we need to make sure that we can find the ADFS server to get a certificate and to register our device. So I'm just going to open up a command prompt here, and I'll increase the size of the font here for you. Make it a little easier to see. So we're just going to do an NS lookup command. Now this is a command that looks up for name records on a name server, DNS server, and we're going to look up that enterprise registration. .adatum.com. So can we find that? And hopefully we can. Yes, there we go. So we can see that, aha, so that name is really been aliased, and the real server is London Server 1 at this IP address. So the bottom line is we can contact that server and talk to that server.
Yeah, do DNS.
So DNS is working. Okay, and something else we have to do is this is not a domain join device. Again, we are in a work group. We are in a work group. And what this means is we do not by default trust the CA in the domain. We do not trust the CA in the domain. If we're domain joined, typically we do trust any CAs that have that are enterprise CAs that integrate with Active Directory. So in this case, we are not domain joined. We don't trust the CA, so we have to find a copy of the CA's certificate. So I've already downloaded that. Let's take a look at the desktop.
There it is.
So on the desktop, I already downloaded this. This is from the root CA. And notice it's a CER file, a certificate file. Now we can open this up and look at it, and we'll see in a second. Come on. I don't know why that's taking so long, but anyway, we would, there we go. So notice this is, the root CA certificate has not been issued by any other CA because it's the first CA. So it's issued to and by. This is called a self-signed certificate.
That's just for demo purposes here, but generally.
Oh, even for real world, your root CA has a self-signed certificate. It's the top of the food chain. If you want your clients to trust things on the internet, you'll go talk to a CA on the internet to get a certificate. But
Got it. Right.
For your internal networks, you will normally have a public key infrastructure, your own CAs. You can give out your own certificates. You know, so it's all internal. So anyway, this is it. This is the self-signed CA root CA certificate, and we need to install this. Because right now we do not trust the CA. In fact, we see the little red mark here. Yeah. This CA root certificate is not trusted. So they even tell us what to do here. Well, to enable install this in the trusted root CA store. Okay, so we'll click on install certificate, and this is the certificate import wizard. Just real quick, I'm going to cancel this and just show you another way to do this. You could also right-click the CER file and say install certificate. So that's another way to do it. Okay, so we need to install this in the local machine certificate store. The certificate store, the word store here means database. It's a storage area for all your certificates. So we're going to say local machine. Oh, here's a UAC prompt. We're going to say prompt for consent. We'll say yes on that.
Good practice, Zach.
And we'll say place the certificate in the following storage area, the following storage area. Okay, and we're going to put this in the trusted root CA's list. You know, as a slight tangent, let me show you the certificate store. That's certmgr.msc. And then with certificates, you have to use the snap-in, certmgr.msc. And every Windows operating system ships with a list of trusted root CAs. And the reason is when you go out to, let's say, a banking website on the internet or PayPal or eBay or anywhere you're using HTTPS, then you might then those web servers will have gotten a certificate from a trusted root CA. So because you trust these root CAs, and if these root CAs give out certificates to websites, therefore you trust the website because you trust the root CA that issued the certificates. It's all based on trust. All based on trust. Anyway, our CA is not in the list, so we need to add that in. And I'll say back to the import wizard. We'll add this in. And that's it. We'll finish. And let me just actually go back out and we'll refresh this list. Well, let me try this again. Oh, you know what? I'm looking at the current user instead of the current computer. That's my fault. So that's not going to work. If we really wanted to verify this, we'd go out to MMC, start run MMC. We'll add in a snap-in, add the certificate snap-in for the computer account and not the user account. Computer account, and we'll finish this off. Expand out trusted root CAs. And there's ADatum, ADatum CA. We now trust ADatum's CA. It was not on the list before. Okay, I'm going to close this out, close that out. And let's see, our next thing then is to attempt to access a claims-based application. Now that's something to be aware of. With Workplace Join, we can give the users access to some things, but not everything, and we're limited. We can only give them access to applications that use claims-based authentication. Right. ADFS is a server that helps you use claims-based authentication. A simple example would be SharePoint often uses claims-based authentication, especially SharePoint 2013, later versions of SharePoint. So any kind of web application that's using claims-based authentication, that's something you can use with Workplace Join. So let's test this out. We've got a web application. I've got the shortcut already put in here. Our server 2 is our web server. So we're heading out to London server 2, adatum.com/claim app for a claims-based application. And what this will do eventually is prompt us for our credentials, our domain credentials. And actually, it's a kind of a thought experiment here. We have not yet joined with Workplace Join. We have not yet joined with Workplace Join. So what's going to happen is we can try and log on with ADatum Atom, which is great. And we'll get in because we're using proper credentials. But I think for time's sake, I'm not going to keep testing this. To really prove this, I would close out Internet Explorer, try and get back into this website, and it would prompt us again. The point is, it keeps prompting you over and over and over and over, and we're not getting the single sign-on experience.
Right.
So we'll close this out, and we'll head back out to. We'll stick with the desktop here, and then we'll do the actual Workplace Join. So let's go to PC Settings, and we'll go to. Charmers bar and then PC settings. And then we'll go to network. I'll get rid of that. Okay. We'll go to network. And there we have Workplace Join. And see, all we do is type in just adam@adatum.com, the domain credentials. We'll try and join. Going to try and connect to our workplace. And it'll prompt us here for a password in just a second. And after we get joined in, we're pretty much done. We'll go back to Active Directory and verify that our registered device has been added in. And we can also check our local certificates to see that we've been issued a registered device certificate. And when this is done, this should say leave.
Say leave.
Yeah.
That's funny. There you go.
Okay. So let's try. Now, so we could go out to the desktop, and we could try the corporate claims-based application again. The idea being, we log in once now, and then we're good to go. Single sign-on. We'll come back to this because it takes so long to load up. Let's head over to the domain controller. We'll head over to Active Directory. We'll head over to registered devices, and oh no, we'll do a refresh. There we go. So refresh. We see there's our registered device. So we're Workplace Joined now. We're not fully domain joined, but we're Workplace Joined. We've got a GUID here. Starts out 727B, etc. MSDS device type. So that's in there. And then let's head back to the client system. And okay, so on the client system, here's that claims-based application, the web-based application. That could take a second to load up. Oh, that was pretty fast. Okay, so we got logged in. And something to point out here is that we have this, they made this application in such a way to show you that you have a GUID. Here's our GUID for our registered device. So it's just a way of showing all your claims. Claims, that's a whole can of worms, but this is showing all the claims you have in your access token. So anyway, we've got the 727 GUID. We are a registered device. And we could also check certificates. I probably should have left the certificate snap-in open. And let's add in, we can do this real quick. We'll add certificates back in. This will be for the computer account. And we'll check personal certificates now. Or maybe it's the user, sorry. I missed something here. Let's see here. Add a user account. Let's see here. There we go. So it's here's our 727 certificate issued by MS Organization Access. So that's the certificate issued to us by our CA, saying that we're a trusted registered device. So this gives you trust, this gives you manageability, this gives you access to some things like claims-based applications. Let's see if we have anything else here. And that's it for Workplace Join.
Great.
Okay.
Good demo.
All right, we made it. A lot of complicated stuff on the infrastructure side, but just remember the gist of it is you go to PC settings and just type in your email address and then your Workplace joined. So let's keep moving. We got about 10 minutes left here. Let's go to our PowerPoint slides and talk about work folders.
These are fun.
What do you say?
Go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so work folders is not the same thing as Workplace join. Totally different things. What confuses the matter possibly is that you can use both simultaneously, but you don't have to.
In fact, it's kind of recommended you do. But
yeah. But that said, for example, you can use work folders with domain joined computers. So they're not always put together. Not always put together. Yeah. So let's take a look. What are we talking about here with work folders? So with Workplace join, we were talking more about applications, claims-based applications. Here we're talking about files. So if you had a domain-joined computer, you could just use a shared folder and then have files, and then there's no big deal. Work folders uses something called a sync share, and it allows these non-domain-joined devices or domain-joined devices to have access to this thing called a sync share, and it's really it's a lot like offline files. Definitely. So if you've used offline files in the past, works roughly the same way. You take files home with you, maybe you make changes at home when you work at home, and then you come back to the workplace, and it syncs back up with the server hosting the sync share. So it's called a sync share. A sync share can literally be an SMB file share. So it's just a bunch of files. So what do we got going on here? So work folders, on the infrastructure side, you have to have a server running Server 2012 R2. This is a brand new feature. Users can use multiple devices to access their work folders information, but they only have one sync share. So that's an important concept. Users only have access to their sync share. It's kind of like a home folder. So they have access to their files, their stuff, and they can get that stuff on their personal devices, on their tablets, smartphones, what have you. So. Now, the benefit of having the files on the server, look at the bottom part of the slide here, you can ensure compliance with various company policies. Like you can set up quotas, you can set up file screens, which a file screen is like you can't save MP3 files in the file server, you can't save AVI files. Classification, you can have what's called file classification infrastructure. You can encrypt the documents locally, do a remote wipe. Ultimately, we're just giving people access to files. You just got to keep that in mind. We're not getting too fancy and complicated here.
But from different devices, and you can sync them up. So it's kind of.
So our next slide here is, well, how does this compare? How does this compare to SkyDrive or folder redirection, for example? So I'm trying to think what to point out here. So data location, that's an important difference. With SkyDrive, all your files and settings are being saved out to the cloud.
Zach.
What's that?
It's OneDrive, Zach.
Sorry, jeez. They just changed it.
I'm just kidding.
Why isn't this slide changed? Huh?
I guess that's my fault.
I'm telling you, I have two 8.1 devices, and one never moved over to
All
OneDrive.
right. We'll talk about that after this.
Yeah, you'll have to help me out with that. I don't know.
Fix it,
Yeah. Okay, so back to our comparison then. So OneDrive or SkyDrive, that would be the cloud, and then work folders. That's an actual file server running Server 2012 R2. So that's a big difference. Well, let's just keep going here. We've got running out of time here. We got to set this thing up. So what components are required? You got to have a server, okay, and on that server you have to have a sync share, which is just basically a folder with files, and then you have to configure user devices to connect to the sync share. It's not too bad, right? Okay, let's keep going here. Here's a diagram of how this works. Again, it works like offline files. So lower left-hand corner, here's a laptop, and they'll have a local copy of the files, and they'll have a version database. And that helps the client tell if there's any new changes to synchronize with the server and vice versa. So that's pretty much, oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, I know. You'll see that again.
The flipping file, okay. And so important caveats here, a user is limited to a single work folder. Another important thing to be aware of is the client is always the one that initiates synchronization, never the server. Okay, let's keep going. And how do you configure this? You install the work folders role service on your server. You create a sync share in the file server. We'll do that in the demo. And then you can tell your users to, manually you can have them connect in, or you can use group policy or system center. And you can combine the two. So you can combine workplace join and work folders. In both cases, you're trying to give these non-domain joined devices access to some stuff. With workplace join, it's claims-based applications. With work folders, it's files. And then additionally, domain members can have access to work folders as well. Maybe a user has a non-domain joined device and a domain joined device. Well, now they can have their files on both devices. That's the benefit then of doing it both ways.
Certainly.
Okay. So last thing here is GPOs. You can use GPOs to configure all this, and then I'm going kind of fast here because I want to get into the demo before it's too late. So let's get into our demo for work folders. So the first place we'll go is the DC, and on our DC, I've already installed the work folders role service. So here's our DC. I went to PowerShell on this one and just typed out install Windows feature fs-sync share service. We could have also gone to the server and gone to add roles and features. I'll go through this pretty fast here. Basically, on the server, you can install the file and storage services role, basically the file server role. And if you expand out here, you'll see you have the option to install work folders.
Right.
So that's already been done. That saves us some time. I'm going to minimize that. And then in Server Manager here on the server, left-hand side we go to File and Storage Services, and that's where you can configure work folders as well. So we'll click on Work Folders here. And on the right-hand side it says there are no sync shares created yet, so we can just click on the link here, or go to Tasks, New Sync Share. And New Sync Share Wizard, okay. And we're saying, yes, make a sync share on the DC here. Normally, you'd probably use this on a regular file server, not a domain controller, but
domain controller.
We're just trying to make life a little simpler and faster here. So we'll make a sync share on, let's say we'll C / sync share. And it says, hey, wait a second, that folder does not exist. Click OK to create it. Okay, we'll just do that. So it's going to make that folder for us. Then every user who uses the sync share would have their own unique folder underneath as a subfolder. So you could say, how do those subfolders appear? Do they appear as their user logon name or as their email address, basically?
So you get a choice of one or the other.
Yeah. So we'll just stick with the default here and click Next, and we're going to call this sync share. And we need to grant access to certain groups. We're going to pick on the marketing group again. we'll say the marketing group can access the sync share. And we are not going to encrypt on the client side, and we are not going to require automatic lock screen. But notice you can, some mobile device policies if you want. So sync share location is the DC. That's our file server. The file share is the sync share here. C:\\sync share. Marketing can access this. Okay, we'll create this.